Hi everyone, my name is Muhammad Riolyanto, and in this presentation, I will analyze applied microeconomics market behavior from decision and welfare implication in selected industries. This analysis apply core microeconomics framework to analyze Amarta and the broader Indonesian P2P microlending market as its primary subject of macroeconomic analysis. The analysis proceeds through six analytical dimensions. This framework illuminated how Amarta creates and captures value, how it navigates competitive and regulatory pressures, and what its operation mean for economic welfare, particularly for Indonesia's most financially vulnerable population. This is the outline of my presentation today. We can start from the introduction and then to the market definition, demand and supply, elasticity, firm behavior, market structure, basic welfare, and the insight and the conclusion. The first one is the introduction. Okay, financial inclusion remains a major challenge in Indonesia. Despite having more than 65 million UMKM, many entrepreneurs, especially ultra micro business, still lack access to formal credit due to the absence of collateral, credit history, and proper documentation. This financing gap creates strong demand for alternative lending, according to World Bank 20 and 22, the MSME financing gap remains large, leading to excess demand in the credit market. P2P lending platform help address this gap by providing digital financing with interest rates typically between 20 until 36 annually. Amarta operates as a fintech intermediary connecting investors with micro entrepreneurs founded in 20 2010 and licensed by OJK, Amarta used a group lending model inspired by Grameen Bank, where borrowers from solidarity groups that share collective repayment responsibility instead of relying on collateral. The ultra micro lending market is shaped by multiple structural forces. This includes strong unmet demand, government-backed programs, regulatory oversight by OJK, and fintech disruption, making it an important case for understanding how microeconomic forces influence credit allocation and competition. The first one, we move to the defining market, the buyers. The demand side of this market consists of ultra micro entrepreneurs, predominantly women, who operate informal or semi formal micro businesses in sectors such as warung, small scale agriculture, food processing, and services. These borrowers are defined by the Indonesian government's Pembiayaan Ultramikro, or we call it UMI program, as those not yet bankable, typically requiring financing below 20 million per cycle. They lack formal collateral, don't post credit score from traditional, and are geographically dispersed across rural sub-districts across the Indonesia archipelago. For the sellers, it is related to the lenders and the platforms. The supply side consists of institutions that originate, underwrite, and disburse credit to this borrower segment. This includes state-owned microfinance entity such as P&M Mekar, Islamic Community Bank, the BTPN Syariah, and also the fintech P2P platform. This is the Amarta. In Amarta unique model, the platform acts as an intermediary with ultimate funding provided by individual and institutional lenders registered on the platform, making the seller is a two-side marketplace. For the product, the core product is a small group loans structured on, we called it tanggung renteng principles, where borrower groups of typically It can be 15 until 25 women hold joint accountability for repayment. Loan size range from 1 million until 20 million per borrower per cycle, dispersed in weekly or bi-weekly. The product is characterized by embedded non-financial service, financial literacy training, health education, and increasingly digital payment access with the Amarta link. For the geographic scope, while Amarta and peers operate nationally, the ultra-micro market is inherently hyperlocal in delivery. Amarta report coverage in more than 50 100 villages across Indonesia. The market is best understood a collection of localized supermarket where field officer, the credit officer, the account officer serve as the critical distribution mechanism. Geography reach is itself a competitive mode. For the market size, the Indonesia MSME sector forms a very large potential credit market with more than 65 million UMKM units. The ultra-micro segment represent the most underserved layer with strong demand for small-scale financing. The government UMI program plays a major role in financing ultra-micro borrowers. By December 2024, the program had disbursed around 44 trillion to about 11 million borrowers through 84 partner institutions with an average loan size about 3.7 million per borrower. State-owned financial institutions dominate the ultra-micro lending ecosystem. The BRI PNM Pegadaian Ultra Micro Holding established in 2021 expanded its borrower base from 19 million in 2021 to around 30 million by July 2023, making it one of the largest microfinance ecosystem globally. And the last one, Amarta is a major private sector player in this market. Since its founding in 2010, Amarta has served over 3.7 million borrowers in 100 villages and disbursing about 13 trillion in 2025 and more than 37 trillion cumulatively. Like I mentioned, there are four key players define the competitive structure of the market, each operating under distinct model and regulatory framework. These four players present distinct archetypes within the market. PNM dominates by scale, backed by state capital and the UMI program. BTPN serves the Islamic financial preference segment with disciplined credit culture and a large field staff. And Amarta differentiate through the technology, distribution, and ecosystem expansion beyond lending. And Bina Arta represent a focused private microfinance operator serving both group and individual micro borrowers at a smaller but operational discipline at scale. Moving to demand and supply analysis. The demand for ultra micro credit is driven by several non-price determinants. The first one, income and economic condition. Demand for productive credit rise when macro conditions support business activity. When commodity price are favorable, borrowers perceive higher returns on capital deployed and demand more credit. Conversely, economic shock such as COVID-19 simultaneously increase need while reducing repayment capacity, creating a complex demand shock. The second one, the determinants is financial literacy and awareness. As Amarta invests in group-based financial education, borrower awareness of formal credit option increases. This is a demand shifter. Educational outreach effectively shift the demand curve outward by reducing information asymmetry barriers that previously excluded borrowers from seeking formal credit. The third one, price of substitute. The primary substitute for formal ultra microcredit is informal money lending, or we call it a rentenir, which charge significantly higher effective interest rates, often 10 until 30% per month, compared to Amarta. It is the range is 30 until 35 per annum. Yeah. As Amarta rates and term become more favorable relative to rentenir, demand for Amarta product increases. The fourth one, number of buyers in Indonesia ultra micro segment is structurally expanding. Urbanization, the formalization push from a government program, and rising female entrepreneurship rates are all increasing the pool of potential borrowers. This represents a rightward demand shift. The last one, borrower expectation. Borrowers who anticipate economic improvement, whether from commodity price cycle or government subsidy programs, are more likely to take credit for investment purpose. Those anticipating uncertainty may demand smaller loans or defer. And this is the determinants of supply. The first one is cost of capital or funding cost. For Amarta as a P2P platform, the supply of credit is directly linked to the willingness of retail and institutional lenders on the platform supply side to fund loans. When Indonesia benchmark interest rates rise, alternative investment opportunities for retail lenders become more attractive, reducing the capital available on Amarta platform. This shifts the credit supply curve leftward for Amarta, even if demand for borrowers remain constant. The second one, numbers of sellers of competition. The entry of additional players, whether other fintech, government-backed MFI, or cooperative, increase aggregate supply of ultra microcredit. Like PNM occur massive expansion has significantly increased aggregate supply, which puts competitive pressure on pricing and borrower acquisition. The third one, technology and digitalization. Amarta ongoing investment in field technology like digital disbursement, AI-driven for the credit scoring, and also we have the Amarta Link again network reduce the marginal cost of adding borrowers. This act as a rightward supply shifter at each interest rate. Amarta can profitably supply more credit as operational efficiency improve. The third one, regulatory environment OJK regulation on P2P lending platform. And the last one, the default risk perception high non-performing loan NPL rates. A critical macroeconomic distinction is between movement along a curve caused by a price change and shift of the curve caused by non-price determinants. When Amarta adjusts the sample case is when Amarta adjusts its lending rates downward. Let's say it is due to improved credit scoring technology. This induces a movement along the demand curve. More borrowers demand credit at a lower rate. This doesn't as if the demand curve is steep. Different with this case, when the government expand the UMI subsidy program, increasing the number of eligible borrowers and reducing their cost of accessing formal credit, this caused a rightward shift of the demand curve for formal ultra micro credit, broadly benefiting all players, including Amarta. The next one is elasticity analysis. Price elasticity of demand measure how responsive the quantity demand is to a change in price. One important concept, elasticity, is not the same as slope. With this in mind, where does ultra microcredit demand fall on the elasticity spectrum? The answer is firmly the inelastic zone, or we call it the elasticity of demand is less than 1, meaning in percentage change in quantity demand is smaller than the percentage change in interest rate. For reason, explain why. The first one is few clause substitute exist at comparable terms. The second one, credit is a necessity, not a luxury. The third one, the short-term horizon reduce elasticity. And the last one, switching costs lock borrowers in. On the other side, the retail and institutional investor, or we call it lenders, who fund the loan, the elasticity picture is very different. The supply of lendable capital on a market platform is relatively elastic, or it has more than one, like the graphic, uh, this graphic. The reason connect directly to the substitution principle. The more substitutes available to supplier, the more elastic their supply. Retail investors on Amarta platform have abundant alternatives such as bank deposit, ORI, mutual funds, equity, and other P2P platform. If Amarta risk-adjusted return become less competitive, these investors can undo redeploy their capital elsewhere quickly. There are no meaningful switching costs or social pressure keeping them on the platform. This creates a striking asymmetry in the market sector that Amarta must navigate. And for the borrower side, so it is in demand is relative inelastic, giving Amarta more pricing power. And from lender side, supply is elastic, meaning Amarta must keep investor return competitive. Strategic implication for Amarta if lenders return are reduced to lower borrower interest rates, capital supply could quickly as investors shift to better yielding alternative. Elasticity and the incidence of the UMI subsidy. The UMI program channel below market cost funds through BIP to partners institutions, which then lend to ultra micro borrowers at rates lower than purely commercial lending would allow. The key question from a microeconomic standpoint is who actually benefits from the subsidy. The incidence of a subsidy, meaning who actually capture the benefit, depends on the relative elastic of demand and supply, not on who formally receive the transfer. The logic applied directly here. Borrower demand is inelastic. Institutional supply is more elastic. Lender can adjust the rate structure more flexible. Then borrowers can exit the market because the demand inelastic. Borrower capture only a portion of the subsidy benefit in the form of lower interest rates. The lending institution capture the remainder as a wider spread between its subsidized funding costs and the rate it charges borrowers. This is not necessarily due to bad intent. It is simply how market work when demand is price inelastic. The subsidy shift the supply curve rightward, but because borrowers are not very price sensitive, the equilibrium price doesn't fall by the full amount of the subsidy. Like the picture mentioned, the gap between uh, without a subsidy and price with subsidy represent the total subsidy value. The portion between price with the subsidy and price institution is captured by the institution as margin. Only the portion between institution and the actual borrower facing rate is truly passed through the borrowers. The more inelastic the borrower demand relative to supply, the larger the institutional capture of the subsidy and smaller the benefit actually reaching borrowers. This has direct and important policy implications. If the government goal is for UMI subsidies to genuinely expand borrower welfare rather than simply boost institutional margin, then active monitoring of the subsidy pass-through rate is essential. Regulator should track the spread between what partner institutions pay for UMI source fund and what they charge borrowers, and flag cases where the spread significantly exceeds legitimate operating cost benchmark. This is not a hypothetical concern given the established inelastic of borrower demand in this market. The structural condition for partial subsidy capture already exists. The question is not whether it happens, but by how much and whether policy is designed to measure and constrain it. Moving to firm behavior and cost structure, Amarta operates a two-side marketplace model with high fixed costs and a complex variable cost structure as a firm that's transformed vector of production into financial service. Amarta cost structure can be analyzed using the standard framework. The total cost is equal to fixed costs plus variable costs. For the fixed costs, are costs that don't change regardless of how many borrowers are served. For Amarta, fixed costs include technology platform development and maintenance credits like credit scoring algorithm, Amarta link apps, disbursement infrastructure, regulatory compliance infrastructure, brand ecosystem development, and also the central operation like risk management, finance, legal, and HR. Fixed costs are essentially sunk in the short run. Critically, Amarta investment in technology, like I mentioned before, the AI-based credit scoring, digital KYC, Amarta link apps, and also BP apps represent a large upfront fixed cost that creates economies of scale. As the borrower base grows, the fixed cost per borrower decline per borrower will be declined. For example, in the table, let's say Amarta invests 30 billion in technology, and because these technology costs are fixed, they create economic of scale. The economic of scale occur when the average cost per unit decreases as the scale of operation increases. This means that as Amarta expands its borrower base, the fixed cost per borrower declined. As the platform grows, the average fixed cost decreases, making the business model more efficient. This is a key advantage for a digital financial platform like Amarta. Once the technology infrastructure is established, the platform can serve a much larger number of borrowers with a relatively small additional costs. For the variable costs are costs that rise as the number of borrowers served increases. It is the variable cost and uh, this area is field officer like credit officer, salaries, travel allowance, and also disbursement cost. This is the dominant variable cost as each credit officer manages a portfolio of borrower group requiring weekly in-person meetings. The second one, loan loss provision. The third one is digital disbursement transaction costs, and the last one, borrower acquisition costs. The next one, marginal cost, follow the pattern of the law of diminishing marginal productivity. At low scale, marginal cost is very high. Its CO can only manage a limited number of groups. Adding borrowers requires adding another CO and entering new village. At the moderate scale, the marginal cost decline as CO achieve full group capacity and digital tools reduce administrative burden. At high scale, the marginal cost rise again in new geographic market where infrastructure like agent network, village prisons must be rebuilt from scratch. The MC follow the pattern of the law of diminishing marginal productivity. And for the average cost, these are the component of the average cost. The first one, average fixed cost, continuously decline as borrowers count grow. If in the graphic is the yellow one, and the second one, average variable cost, initially decline as CO and agent are more fully utilized, then rise as expansions reach more remote and costly communities. The orange one. And the third one is total cost. The average fixed cost plus average variable cost, which is the use shape, the borrower volume at which Amarta operates more efficiently. Amarta auto decision is fundamentally a question of how many borrowers to serve and at what interest rate. Both decisions are interconnected and driven by the cost structure and market condition. On the output side, Amarta must determine how deeply to penetrate each geographic market in established village where CO infrastructure already exists. MC is low, it is rational for Amarta to continue adding new borrower groups in new geographic market. If MC is high, so expansion requires a sufficient expected lifetime revenue. On the pricing side, Amarta charges borrower an effective interest rate of approximately 30 until 35 annual interest. This pricing is not purely an exercise of market power, it reflects the genuine high cost of ultra microcredit delivery. Labor-intensive CO operations, field logistics, and elevate default risk provision. On the other side, Amarta pays platform lenders approximately 15 until 80% annual. The result gross spread of 17 until 20% points must cover. Amarta pricing decisions are also constrained externally by OJK. Regulation for a P2P platform interest rate caps and competitively by PNM Mekar, which benefit from state subsidies and can therefore offer low rates. This competitive pressure limits Amarta ability to raise price, making cost efficiency the primary sustainable path to profitability. For the profit maximization, Amarta maximize profit where MR equal MC, meaning it keeps adding borrower as long as additional revenue exceeds additional costs. In established village, MC is lower due to existing infrastructure, so Amarta can increase penetration by adding more borrower groups. In new geographic market, MC is higher because of recruitment, training, and network setup, so expansion occurs only if expected lifetime revenue exceeds this cost. Technology and data advantage like AI credit scoring, operational learning economics of scale reduce cost over time, allowing Amarta to profitability serve more ultra micro borrowers. The next one, market structure analysis. Indonesia ultra micro group lending market is classified as an oligopoly with differentiated products, exhibiting some feature of monopolistic competition in localized submarket, applying the distinct characteristics of oligopoly. It is driven by few dominant firms, product differentiation, interdependent decision, and barriers to entry. The firms in this market must take into account the expected reaction of other firms when making decisions, particularly regarding geographic expansion, product addition, and borrower acquisition, which is the hallmark oligopolistic strategic decision making. This is the complete of the characteristic of the uh, why the ultra micro group lending is categorized as the oligopoly. Dominant firm model for uh, for the ultra micro group lending market is PNM occur as a market anchor. They have 62.64% of ultra micro customers. It is contributed 15 million active customer, and also the 53.78 of outstanding credit distributed to 43.6 trillion outstanding. And how about Amarta? Strategic positioning. So Amarta use non-price dimension rather than through direct price wars. The strategic is the first one is technology as a differentiator. As I mentioned before, Amarta use AI driven for the credit scoring, digital disbursement, and also data analytic. The second one, the capital model differentiation. Amarta intermediate between retail and institutional lender and micro borrowers through a P2P platform model. The third one is ecosystem expansion. So Amarta have Amarta Link. It is the fintech product as well with the 50,000 again payment service digital wallet reflect a deliberate strategy to evolve from a single product lender toward a financial service ecosystem. Interest rate competition in this market doesn't resemble the price wars predicted by the Bertrand model. Instead, pricing is relatively stable due to structural factor. The first one is OJK rate caps constrain the upper bound of lending rates. The second one, borrower group stickiness. Tanggung renteng lending groups, one established, are difficult for rival to poach. And the third one, the nominal players, PNM, price and social and policy mandate rather than pure profit maximization. This produces a relative stable price equilibrium consistent with the king demand curve. If Amartya were to raise rates above the market norm, borrowers would defect to PNM or BTPS. If it were to lower rates, a competitor would not necessarily follow given PNM cost structure, yielding little gain in market share. The result is price stickiness and competition displaced toward non-price dimension. Precisely the behavior the king demand curve model predict. The next one, basic welfare analysis. Consumer surplus in the ultra micro credit market is positive but compressed relative to what a fully competitive market would generate. Borrowers still benefit from the access to formal credit and additional service. Second one, demand for credit is relatively inelastic, so borrowers continue borrowing even at higher interest rates. And the third one, fintech platform like Amarta expand market access, increasing customer welfare via Amarta Link. And for producer surplus is significant but unevenly distributed across market participants. So for the PNM Mekar, benefits from government subsidized funding through the UMI or PIP program, and the Amarta as a for profit platform. Amarta represent genuine market returns, and uh, BTPN Syariah capture product producer surplus through superior portfolio discipline, better NPF management. The market power as the primary source of the market failure. Major player PNM Mekar, BTPN Syariah, and Amarta pose a structural advantage that allow them to price above a competitive level. Strict interest rate caps may reduce credit supply and create shortage and debt weight loss. Institutions with market power may strategically limit credit supply, especially to higher risk or remote borrowers to maintain margin. This result in a transfer of surplus from borrowers to lenders and creates market inefficiently. Government intervention. UMI program increase credit supply through subsidized funding, lowering lending rates, and increasing consumer surplus. The program also create positive externalities such as financial inclusion and local economic growth. However, risks include uh, crowding out private lenders, moral hazard among borrowers, and subsidy leakage where institutions capture part of subsidy. OJK regulation improve consumer protection and transparency. But compliance costs may reduce credit supply and create potential inefficient. And for conclusion, microeconomic case study Indonesia ultra micro group lending market is a strong microeconomic case study because it combines market dynamics, government intervention, technology innovation, and social policy in shaping financial inclusion. Market imperfection, despite progress, the market remains imperfect due to inelastic demand, high entry barriers. Role of government intervention. Government initiatives such as Ultra Micro UMI program, Indonesia as a regulation from authorities jasa keuangan played a crucial role in correcting market failure. First one, future strategic challenge as digital technology becomes a standard rather than a competitive advantage. Amarta future growth will likely depend on ecosystem monetization. And the last one, broader economic insight. Ultimately, the ultra micro lending market demonstrates how the interaction between market firm and policy can unlock economic opportunity. Thank you.